So, Alessandro, the clarity that you speak of is just the essential nature of your mind. The fact of being aware, or awareness itself. And awareness is always transparent, open, empty, free, knowing. And it is often clouded or dimmed by thoughts and feelings. So thoughts and feelings obscure it or seem to obscure it. And that's the times when you feel a lack of clarity, and when this becomes very strong you feel depressed. So what is to be done? Simply to go back to your essential nature. Trace your way back. Disentangle yourself from the content of experience in which you have temporarily lost yourself. You, awareness. You, awareness, have lost yourself in your own activity of thinking and perceiving. Like an actor who temporarily loses himself in the part he is playing. What is to be done? He just needs to trace his way back to himself. That's all you need to do. Right now, even if you were deeply depressed, even in the midst of a deep depression, the nature of your mind is clear, open, empty, spacious, free, at peace, fulfilled, luminous. Not when the depression ends, but in the midst of the depression. So but we don't notice this because we become so involved in the content of our experience, in this case the depression or the lack of clarity or whatever it is you're feeling, the anxiety, the loneliness. We become, when we say I am depressed, we give 100% of our attention to the depression and no attention to the I am. But we even say I am depressed. What is that I am? It is your being that has been temporarily colored by a feeling. You have lost yourself in the feeling. Just come back to yourself. That's it. Just come back to yourself. And if yourself seems obscure or remote or hard to access, then you can ask yourself a question. What is it that is aware of my depression? Now, in order to answer that question, your mind has to disengage from the depression and find that which is aware of it. In other words, it must trace its way backwards towards its essence rather than forwards towards its content. And the more you do this, the pathway will get shorter and shorter, and you will find that less and less experiences have the capacity to veil the nature of your mind. So the experience of depression, for instance, it will, instead of being a heavy cloud that lingers in you, it will just be a thin film. And in time it will leave you. Remember, the thoughts and feelings, they're just conditioned patterns or habits. So all that is necessary is just make the habit, generate a new habit in yourself, the habit of going back to yourself. Every time you go back to yourself, it will become just that little bit easier. It'll take 10 minutes the first time, 9 minutes the next time, 8 minutes the next time, and in the end you notice the depression, You don't even need to formulate the question in the end. You notice the feeling, you straight back to yourself, and the feeling drops. Ask yourself now, what is it that is aware of your experience? Don't answer the question with a word, just ask yourself the question and go in your experience to that which is aware of your experience. Okay, it took you 10 seconds. Yeah, okay, that's it. Why should it ever take you longer than 10 seconds? So in future, don't give yourself more than 10 seconds. Yeah, that's the maximum. This tension or agitation or depression, and as you rightly say, the mind then goes into a kind of intellectual conversation with itself. Everything appears in awareness, there's nobody here, there's nothing to do, etc., etc., etc. But those thoughts just lie like a thin veneer on top of your feeling of depression. What is more real to you in that moment? Your feeling of depression or the thought that says, there's nobody here, there's nothing to do? No, the feeling of depression is your truth at that moment. And as you rightly say, going into some intellectual, non-dual line of thinking doesn't touch the depression, it just sits like a superficial veneer on top of it. Instead of just being interested in your depression, become interested in the being aware of it. What is this awareness that is aware of my depression? In other words, instead of focusing on the depression, trying to get rid of it, trying to find a reason for it, trying to find its cause, trying to find its remedy, etc., just leave it alone. Say to your depression, okay, that's fine, you just stay there, you can be just as you are. And it's like shifting the focus of your attention to being aware of it. Become interested in the experience of being aware, rather than being interested in the experience of being depressed.